Am I audible? Yes, I am. So after 4 days of intense documentary activity and a number of arguments that were presented before a distinguished panel of jurors, there is a picture that is revealed of really two JNUs. There was an inquiry that we saw in the last 4 days, a public trial at Sabarmati Lawn, and an inquiry that happened on the 18th of September, when there were in a room in the administration block, room number 225, there were barely 20 people present, a fifth of whom opposed this discussion. Within a space of a few minutes, a charge was orally made against a faculty member who was the chairperson of a center and not present there or even supposed to be present. A verdict of guilty and quantum of punishment was arrived in a matter of seconds literally, and an order implementing the punishment was immediately issued. All of this took place without the faculty member concerned having been even informed that she was being charged, without asking for her what she had to say on the charge against her, and therefore obviously without a hearing. Who was the chief architect of this farce? There's Kangaroo Court in room 225, JNU's esteemed Vice Chancellor, Professor M. Jagdish Kumar. On the other hand, between the 23rd and the 26th of October 2017, in an open public space like the Sabarmati Lawn, with several people present and many others being able to view this on YouTube, a very different process has unfolded and lasted over several hours, with full freedom of expression. A set of charges was made out against an individual who is the Vice Chancellor of a university, which was served to him in advance on 17th of October 2017. He was given the opportunity to respond to the charges in writing, and also invited to be present himself or through his representatives during the proceedings. Detailed oral and written presentations were made in substantiation of these charges by a group of faculty members, which included a range from very senior and distinguished professors who have served the university for decades to younger colleagues who have joined more recently. What was common among them that was each of whom was appointed through a due process and on the recommendations of selection committees whose composition was above board and on the basis of requisite qualifications. Even though the defendant chose to waive his right to defend himself, as usual in the customary way that this Vice Chancellor is known for, by silence, by refusing to respond, we learned that no faculty member that we know of being present in JNU today has received written a letter to the Vice Chancellor ever since he's come back and received a response during these trials. So the defendant chose to waive his right to defend himself. His defense on each of the charges was also presented in as honest a manner as is possible, orally as well in writing. Each day a jury of distinguished and renowned individuals heard the presentations in the favor of the charges as well as the defense, and received all the written submissions and supporting documents, and thereafter they made their individual and initial observations. The final verdict, because this is not a kangaroo court, and the quantum of punishment are still awaited as our jurors continue to deliberate upon this matter. So the defendant in the first process was a woman professor of this university, a distinguished professor, Nivedita Menon, and while she was accused and summarily punished for the charges that she was on the basis of were never ever, even the documents relevant to that were not shown to the Executive Council. JNU's esteemed Vice Chancellor, Professor Jagdish Kumar, was the architect behind those proceedings. In the present case, it was the general body of the Jawaharlal Nehru University Teachers Association that is the body architect behind these proceedings. And it is based on the firm conviction, these public trials, that this is a publicly funded university and that the authority to which the Vice Chancellor is bound is the Jawaharlal Nehru University Act, and to uphold the statutes, rules and regulations of this university. The difference between these two sets of these inquiries that we've seen, one a club that huddles amongst itself in a room in the Pink Palace, and one that is, in the wide open spaces of this university, is actually really a difference about in terms of what is JNU is being, the direction that JNU is being sought to taken towards, and the JNU that is, despite this Vice Chancellor. Right? What's the JNU? This is about what JNU is, and in our estimation, in the general body, by the general body of the University Teachers Association, this is what we want to remain. We want to be open, transparent, allowing everyone to have their say, not making accusations without substantiation. And that room in 225 where the club decides that whose head is to roll next and does not listen to the wise counsel of faculty, young and old in that room, in people from within the university, is the direction that the Vice Chancellor wants to take this to. Both these notions are fundamentally incompatible with each other. So if I may say so, as chairpersons are decided and deans are decided by the degree of occlusion of vision that you have, that the Vice Chancellor, people are made to sit in front of the Vice Chancellor and declare the vision that they have, and then the Vice Chancellor will choose. It is really a difference between those that have sight and those that willfully do not see. The Vice Chancellor's vision has been roundly rejected by the teachers of this university, and we hope that this will be the decision of the jury. This lack of vision is an outcome of a Vice Chancellor attempting to make an unyielding university conform to his lack of vision. And this vision, being what it is, what is imminent is the destruction of the university, but only after the teaching community of the university has been browbeaten, to such an extent that it cannot resist. That moment, as these public trials have shown, has not come. It has not come for the teachers, it will not come for the students, and it will not come for every right-thinking citizen of India who is spending their tax rupees, GST unfortunately, so maybe they're giving a little more than they want, to fund this university. As long as this university is open, the teachers of this university will fight for the upholding of constitutional values and statutory principles in this university. Over the last 4 days, a number of articles have been presented, and I would like personally, on behalf of the teaching community and the JNUTA Executive Council, to actually record my thanks to each individual who has participated. If you remember, on the first day, which was Monday the 23rd, there was extensive discussion under Charge 1 of the defendants dealing with the defendants' violations of statutory provisions, and by the distinguished jury there consisted of Professor Prabhat Patnaik, Akshay Mukul, Professor Apurvanand, Professor Nandita Narayan, and Professor P.K. Yadav. On the second day, Articles 6 and 7 regarding the defendant's role in the dismantling of the GS cash and the callousness in the manner of his treatment in the tragic disappearance of Najim Ahmed was covered on day 2. And the jurors on that day were Kalyani Menon Sen, Bhasha Singh, Rahul Roy, Saif Mahmood, and T.K. Rajalakshmi. Day 3 was devoted to Articles 2 and 3 on the defendant's role in undermining the integrity of faculty selection and the damage done to admissions in JNU research programs, the lifeblood of any university, teachers and students, and the violations thereof of reservation policies. The distinguished jury there consisted of Professor Utsa Patnaik, Professor Kirti Jain, Dr. Gohar Raza. The final set of charges was taken up on day 4 yesterday. Articles 4 and 5, which accuse the defendant of behaving in an autocratic and, if one may say so, authoritarian manner, harassing teachers and assaulting JNU's democratic ethos, because these the principle of democracy, of the right to express your opinion in both statutory bodies, in centers and schools, and about matters that pertain not only to the university, is fundamental for research. The jury on this day was Mr. Vinod Dua, Professor Zoya Hassan, Professor Anand Kumar, and Bezwada Wilson. All the distinguished jurors, for those of you who have come daily to the proceedings, have gave their observations orally, and some have also submitted those in writing. We expect more written submissions that will be forthcoming, but as it is in court, oral submissions give you a very good direct understanding of where the oral pronouncements rather give you a very good understanding of which direction the verdict is going to come. What we plan to do is to put these all in a final document along with the written submissions in substantiation and with the supporting documents, and of course the defense statements. We shall hopefully publish it. It shall be circulated to each faculty member, and the JNUTA general body which authorized this will decide on what, of course based on the jury's recommendation, decide on what the steps that are taken further, that will be taken further. What is clear, however, is from what is already available that without exception, all the members of the jury acknowledge the massive scale of the damage being done to this public institution by the Vice-Chancellor, and accepted that there was compelling evidence for the same. Members of the jury spoke about the ahankar, the arrogance which characterizes today's JNU's administration, and of the intellectual debasement and corruption that was growing under its aegis. Describing it as JNU's situation today, it was pointed out that rarely does one see someone having such disdain towards the institution he has. This disdain, if you would recall Akshay Mukul's remark, was there at the beginning, and it actually most probably has grown even more sharper today. Such disdain for the institution he has and for the faculty and students whose interests he is supposed to protect and advance. If you recall, with regard to the disappearance of Najib Ahmed, that there was, actually Saif Mahmood said that there is a responsibility of care that the head of institution has, and even that modicum of a responsibility, forget about fair treatment, etc., but care was not guaranteed to him. There were very valuable suggestions, but unfortunately we can't hold lectures in Freedom Square anymore because the Vice-Chancellor has encaged himself with barricades under 100 meters. But there was a valuable recommendation that courses in masculinity, toxic or non-toxic, I think, should be prescribed to him, and gentle advice that learning something more about the social sciences, which he holds in utter contempt, well, these were also recommended. In the jurors' comments, the VC was reminded of the fact that the student and members of the staff of the university are a much more permanent component of the university than the VC himself. He was also found wanting in his responsibility to adhere to and ensure adherence to statutory principles, but also that the university, he had failed to ensure that the university functions on the basis of a sense of community, which represented the diversity of our country and which required it to function with an ethical legal framework. the moral indefensibility of his actions on the question of selection committees, the GS cash, MPhil PhD admissions, and as I said, Najib's Ahmed's case, apart from the violation of statutory provisions involved was also pointed out. It was observed that a person who is a member of the UGC and often uses its regulations as his weapons of mass destruction was violating these regulations themselves under the UGC's Code of Professional Ethics. That what the Vice Chancellor is attempting to inflict is a major paradigm shift in Jawaharlal Nehru University, which is putting its character as a space of open debate and dialogue under duress, and this was highlighted repeatedly, and that in fact the format of the JNUTA public inquiry was the exact antithesis of what was being attempted by the VC, and this was appreciated. The fact that such an inquiry had to be held was also said to be sufficient evidence in itself of the fact that there was something seriously wrong in the university. Put together what the jurors then added up to the following. Then, and we will announce the verdict after making sure there is signatures from all the work. That Professor M. Jagdish Kumar is guilty as charged of each of the charges laid out against him in the charge memorandum. All the jurors that were present, there was never any disagreement. In fact, jurors' legs were notably shaky as they climbed down this mountainous stage that has been erected, because when you put it all together, it's amazing that any of us can be sane after being subjected to such a vicious attack. Right, so in fact, if I may say so, there have been requests made by Professor Jagdish Kumar for a tank in this university, but the tanks have rolled over much of JNU's basic fundamental principles already. The members of the jury also suggested that a class action litigation or an appeal for a visitor's inquiries should be the route to achieving their basic and fundamental overarching conclusion is that Mr. Professor M. Jagdish Kumar is unfit to be the Vice Chancellor of JNU. The jurors seem to have expectations that if the Vice Chancellor would be mortified at this characterization of his tenure, and that he may choose to step down himself, but if he does not, but if he were not to do this, then it is to higher authorities that we should go, like the visitor and possibly even the court. All of these observations and the complete final reports will be placed before the JNUTA GBM, I said, in the competent authority which initiated the public authority inquiry for necessary consideration and action. JNU, however, is a public institution which belongs first and foremost to the people of the country. We place all these proceedings, which are presented to them in various forms, written, video, etc., and the results of this inquiry for the public for its own verdict, and urge upon the representatives of this public to consider what this inquiry has highlighted seriously and to act before it is too late. Thank you. So, we shall now have the